Welcome to another exciting podcast of Optimize Her 2. You have arrived at YouTube's Optimize Her 2 channel with Barbara E. Ringrose. I'm the founder of Wow Women Optimizing Women. You can view my website at wowwomenus.com and co-creator LaQuincia Nichols, and she is the founder of experiencecoaching.com. We hope that you enjoy all the topics we're bringing to you here on Optimize Her 2. They're relevant to you and what's happening in your world. And also, we want to exhibit a bit of authenticity that perhaps is missing in some of the podcasts that you may be listening to. And perhaps that's why you chose to join us here on OH2. So each first and third Tuesdays of every month, you can join us at Optimize Her 2. And we will air 7 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. So mark your calendar, set your alarm, get ready to join us. We want to let you know that the views of both the co-creators, myself, Barb, and Quincy, are our own, but they're based on our professional and personal experiences. They came with a lot of experience behind us. And even our guests, today we won't be having a special guest with us, but even our guests, when they appear, they also bring forth a lot of information for you because our goal is to educate, elevate, and empower women. Although we know we also have quite a few gentlemen that join us and view our podcast, and we're so excited to have them join us as well. So get ready for a 30 to 45-minute session here on Optimize Her 2. And welcome, Quincy from Arizona. How are you today?
I am doing well, Barb. I'm so excited for this episode because it's kind of taking us back to our original roots with just you and I when we first kicked off our premiere episode. But I think it's good to bring this in every so often just to make sure we're balancing out our audience. I'm so excited with all of the growth and the sort of consistency and the community that we're building around with this podcast. So I say, as we continue to grow, right, and we think about, yes, we want you all to like, comment, and to share and subscribe. But what we really want also is if there are topics that are top of mind for you or something that you've never had the courage to maybe ask in a different environment, send us a message either to Barb and I. You can find us on social media or down in the comments or even, private messages here via the YouTube page. And we are excited to be able to bring the topics to Barbara's point that you all find most relevant, where we may have experience that we could share. But if we don't have the direct experience between her network and my network, I'm sure we can find someone who does, and we can bring them on as a guest expert to really help inform as we continue to educate, elevate, and empower us all to be better, especially moving into our next year.
Well said. And today we're going to talk about, on this episode of OH2, we're going to talk about seasons and new seasons, new you, because it does affect you. And a lot of people don't realize how much a season affects them. So this is about how to thrive through life's transitions, which also is affected by Mother Nature. So just like nature, we go through these seasons, and we have 4 seasons here in North America. Where I am in the mid-Atlantic region, we experience them. And that means if there's overcast weather, if there is rain, if there is long, extensive cold periods, even icing here in the mid-Atlantic region, that can affect people. And of course, with daylight savings time, which we were just now experiencing, that means, in the spring, you talk about spring forward with your clock. Well, in the fall, we fall back. So we've done just that. So some people are still saying it's 7 o'clock. No, it's an hour behind. We're 6 o'clock now. And they keep confusing themselves. And that in itself creates a problem because some of these seasons are bright, they're energizing, others cold and challenging, just to get out your doorstep sometimes with the ice out there. And I know in Arizona, it's different there. So you don't experience that.
I mean, sometimes we get a little bit of ice. I'm always shocked because I tell people we're hot or we're cold or we're like really, really wonderful to live, right? So I feel like we have 3 seasons out here. But I can tell you there was a period in the last winter where I had a small layer of ice on top of our pool in our backyard. So it does get pretty cold out here sometimes.
That's interesting that you mentioned that. And whether it's your career, your relationships, or your mindset, we talked about mindset a couple weeks ago about mind and body, and we're talking about mindset. And I I think the what Joni Rampolla was trying to say
Mhm.
in a previous podcast was mindset is the way you can affix your mind, not the way your mind is affected because of your body metabolism,
Right.
hormones, etc. You can also change that mindset and you can shift it, much like I mentioned about some people are saying it's 7 o'clock. No, it's 6 o'clock. They get confused with the change of daylight savings time here. We need to learn how to adapt. And adapting, especially in the wintertime, with what they call cabin fever, you'll hear
Oh, yeah.
people say, where they get somewhat dysfunctional and maybe even depressed. It is really important. It is key to adapt to these, embrace these seasonal changes. Because if you don't, that makes you a bit unhappy, doesn't it?
Yeah. I think when you can lean into it, I even sometimes think about it, I play my hand at being a gardener and I play my hand of, having a little vegetable garden in our backyard. But you garden based on the seasons, right? You lean into what's going to make sense. So I try to adjust my activities and what I can do to sort of make me happy based on what's going on outside. And if I can't do the outside activities that normally make me happy, how can I maybe adjust to do them inside or find different interests? And I think that helps with making me well-rounded, but also just make sure I'm cultivating various experiences throughout the year.
And that's where the seasonal changes can actually affect what you do and how you schedule. I know people are constantly talking, Quincy, about their calendars, how they are doing their calendar blocking and how they're doing, maybe they're making their calls or how maybe even how they're inviting people and they're doing it because they're morning people or they're evening people or they're night owls. You'll hear people say that. And
Mhm.
sometimes you also have to adjust how you're doing things. For instance, like you mentioned, the gardening. For me, I started golf a little over a year ago in July of
You're doing great with your
2024.
golf.
Thank you. I did a
You're
112 over
welcome.
the weekend with family and friends, and I was I was excited. That might not be great for somebody, but for me, it was so exciting.
And that's
But
all that matters.
I ended up doing, with family and friends, we were doing 1 day a week golf. Well, of course, here in the Mid Atlantic region, again, it's seasonal specific. It's also location, location, location. So that was great to do Thursdays, take off, come in and shift my schedule for what I needed to do, my cooking for dinner, you're
Mhm.
interacting with the family, readjusting my schedule. And it's the same thing with seasons. It's about you're not going to do the same thing every day into perpetuity. At some point in time, you're going to make some sort of an adjustment.
Right.
So, I think, for instance, with your gardening, you have to go by the light. You can't be out in the dark doing your gardening, or can you?
No, I not well, listen, maybe some other people can, but I cannot. I pride myself on I stick to what I know that works, and then also, when you think about the seasons out here in Arizona, right, it can sometimes be very, very dry. So that can also be very different when you think about just the soil and, things to be aware of as the seasons are changing, as the earth is earthing, so to say, right, and going through its process. It reminds me of even like, sometimes you think of a snake and shedding its skin, right? You are going through these different processes to allow for new opportunities. So for me, gardening is nice and it's helped not only with patience, but also consistency.
Couple of important points is so every third week in December, March,
Mhm.
July, here we are, September, June, excuse me, September, we're going through a new season.
Yeah.
So each time that we're shedding our skin or we're becoming sleep deprived or we are having cold or extreme temperatures one way or another, then it's important for us to recognize these and adjust them because our bodies at the same time, we're having changes, as Dr. Rodriguez has said in a previous podcast. We're also having hormonal changes. So not only are the seasons changing, not only is it affecting our careers, but it's affecting our body and our moods.
Yeah, I can tell you I'm going through, I guess, my own season of change, right? As I'm in my mid 40s, and while it's not the big change they talk about for women, but I definitely have felt my body feels different from, my 20s to my 30s and now being in my 40s, and requires a different level of care. I'm much more intentional about, sort of what I'm putting in, and also like taking my vitamins and, my allergies, and just all of the different things that I have to be more mindful about because I do suffer from seasonal allergies. I have asthma, right? So if I'm around too much pollen or dust, all those types of things weigh in on me. So I pay closer attention as the seasons change because it can have a direct effect on my health. And then that indirectly, could have an effect on my mental health.
And also, as we spoke about, it depends on what you're ingesting, right? Whether it
Hmm.
is nature's good foods or it is supplements that we're using or it's pharmaceuticals, all of these things that we're putting into our body, and then they're being affected by the weather through the stresses of our careers, our professions, our
Hmm.
home life, maybe raising children or helping with the elderly. That's affecting things, and especially for women, cortisol. And cortisol was one thing that I recognized I was having difficulty with. And then the people that were coaching me, either at the gym or on one-on-one basis, they were missing the cortisol point. And I'm so glad that that, as well as the barometric pressure changes for
Hmm.
those that are those headache suffers. And if you compound it with something like an allergy, they can really disrupt your life, affect your career, your personal growth, even the connections that you have, the people that you associate with.
Absolutely. I can remember, especially, working in a lot of corporate environments, sometimes you walk into those buildings and you see the sea of gray, right? You see the poor office lighting, and you see people who just have on sunglasses, right? Because they sit in front of the monitors, they have on these lights, but it's the migraines, right? It's triggering to them. And so it's all these different sensitivities. And then you come outside and, it's a sometimes an often very different temperature, whether it's extremely cold or extremely hot. And so there's all these sort of inconsistencies of how you're trying to dress. I know, like, sometimes, you dress in Arizona right now, it's hot outside, it's 86 degrees, but you go inside of a building, right? And people are bundled up because the AC is on. All these things contribute to sometimes you just not feeling your best.
And that's the difference. You talked about the corporate environment. I felt like our corporate executives, they had control, so we were told, of the temperature settings in the buildings. And I would be in a branch that was ice cold. And here it is summertime, and then you go outside. Well, and you almost have it's like a blast of Arctic air when you go in. And then it's that heat blast when you go out, especially
Hmm.
on the warmer days, and layering, making sure that you're preparing for wherever you're going. Here in the summertime, if you go into a mall, or you go to the movie theater, you need to take a jacket. And some
Yes.
people even take blankets with those
Me.
reclining seats, and they're sitting like this in their jacket or have a blanket with their feet propped up. It's kind of funny. But we know that there are predictable patterns in the weather. We can
Right.
pretty much say every 3 months we're going to have a change of season. But what I'm noticing, and I wonder if you're noticing this too, when I travel, and I do a little bit of traveling, other areas of the world are telling me that they're seeing weather pattern changes that are different or atypical. Are you experiencing that? Is that
Yes.
what you're saying in Arizona?
Yeah, we're experiencing that now, right? I think we are right now probably 9 to 12 degrees higher than we are for our usual average, right? So, I'm no politician, but I just feel as though there are things that are changing, and I don't know if we are also adjusting or adapting, as you were talking about, our habits, the way we operate with the earth, right? And sort of with our time to be able to accommodate for that. I remember, I grew up in Southern California all of my life, and I was sort of blessed enough to have seasonal fruit, right? Like, I could always have citrus. It wasn't a big deal. But now moving to other and going other places and understanding, like, oh, wait, you guys don't have strawberries all year long because the weather is so extremely different. It's like you know it, but until you truly experience it, you don't feel the difference. But I think what we've noticed here is that the summers feel much longer, right? And selfishly, we cannot stand that because our electricity bills are already high enough. And it's hard to keep the high spirits when you are suffering from, geez, I think at one point we had maybe 20, 30 days of triple digits consistently. That's hard on anyone's spirit after a
That's
while,
tough.
especially
That's
110.
tough.
Yeah.
And you can talk yourself into certain things, but I think knowing and planning ahead is
Mhm.
what's going to make adapting to the situation. And I mentioned the word embracing before, and embracing the situation, because you can fight against these things all you want. And whether it's switching a career,
Yeah.
or it's relocating across the country. You moved from California to Arizona. I've basically been here in the mid Atlantic region. But regardless of where you are, just embracing what's out there, much like in your occupation, and then determining for yourself what strategies, what methods, what changes you want to incorporate so that you can be more comfortable. Yes, you cannot be in control of everything, everyone. I'm not saying that, but you can be in control of self. And that's one of the things I think we forget. And we want to blame it on something while we're not performing as well as
Right.
we should, like the weather. And I think, getting lights, for instance, if you are having cabin fever and you're suffering from that winter depression, get some lights and put them in an area you're going to be sitting for a period of time. I do in my great room with my orchids and
Mhm.
my plants. It helps them grow. Have it on for 16 hours. Your oxygen that you're generating through your plants in your office or in the places that you're sitting, for instance, that can help you. And those shorter days won't be as won't have that negative impact as much as they used to. So again, you can't be in control of Mother Nature or your boss's nasty temper that drives your cortisol levels up. There's certain things that you are not in control of, but there are things that you are. And I think by embracing the situation, by embracing the changes, by embracing certain things that you are in control in the workplace, or as self-employed people, we have a
Yeah.
lot more control. But then again, we do have limitations too.
We do, because there's a lot of things that we're trying to multitask and manage, right? So you may have to at time make certain, well, reprioritize, let me say that, rather than sacrifice, right? There are things that you may have to reprioritize based on what is top of mind for your business and your growth at that time. I also think that there's oftentimes we feel as though, to your point, right? Where can we make different choices and decide if I don't like certain climate, right? What is the type of climate where I may be more optimal in? And I always joke and say, I live in the desert, but by nature, I'm a beach bum. I would love to be at the beach every day. However, being out here at the desert has afforded me certain opportunities. And, sure, there is a long moonshot goal to have that beautiful beach home to where I can look out every day and see the ocean. But right now, that's not today's dream or today's reality. But I do things to try to create that. So even in my home, when I think about, if I purchase any candles or if I get maybe a diffuser, I get something that, smells like the sea or the ocean, or having sometimes the white nose and I can hear like, it's like a babbling creek or something, because that provides me peace and joy when we're in these colder months. And sometimes I can't go outside or I'm not running to the beach. So I try to find other little things I can incorporate to give me that feeling.
Sometimes when I talk to people about my Reiki or my massage that I do on pretty frequent levels, you can also do massage with your partner.
Mm.
And there are even candles, you mentioned candles that have a fragrance, and they're also good for massage therapy. So don't be afraid to incorporate those kind of things, or take them to try a massage if you've never done that before. Try Reiki with a Reiki partner that can help you transition that negative energy. There are other things that you can do. I know some ladies like their mani pedis and they won't give them up. My daughter's Tara being one of them.
Yeah, that used to be sort of the consistent thing for me. Now I'm sort of playing with this idea of doing it from home just because I think the salon has gotten quite expensive and that's just something that I'm trying to reprioritize. But it is a part of, for some people, that self-care, that consistent thing that they do that makes them feel good, and it's regardless of season. And so I think, you know, That's exciting for me. I think it's probably, probably a bit my hair. I take time to really make sure I pour into it and I'm taking care of it. And then in the winter times, right, when we think about routines, my hair is usually tucked away more, right? And then in the summertime, it's usually out more, just kind of hanging out in the wind. So those are little things I even do just to adjust the routine because I know in the winter I'm going to need a little bit more moisture. I want to make sure I'm protecting and sealing my ends. So I think we all have these little sort of micro shifts that we do, and sometimes you may not be aware of it, but also I think it's great to have these type of conversations because you may not be aware that maybe you need to be making these types of small shifts to provide yourself that self-care. So when we transition to the next season, that you're still in your best form, that you just haven't quote unquote let yourself go, whatever that means to you, because you've been sort of hunkering down in the house.
There's so many takeaways here from this conversation on changes of seasons, whether you are getting something out of it for being in the workplace or starting a new job. Maybe you're starting a career, a small business yourself. Maybe you're in a small business and you're stuck. There are definitely things that you can do to get control, regain control of your life. And that is one of the key takeaways I'd like our viewers to understand. And if they have a situation where they felt they were out of control and they realigned themselves to give them that sense of purpose, that confidence, perhaps that they felt um, they were missing for some time. No, you can't control that person's poor behavior. And understanding too that you can generate certain energy. For instance, we talked about drama in the workplace, drama at home in a previous episode. And just because somebody says something to you doesn't mean you need to respond. Just because the temperature changes in the office to an icy temperature of someone's demeanor doesn't mean you have to turn icy yourself. So, things that you're in control of, maybe incorporating some new things. We hope that we've given you some really good ideas, suggestions here. And we're all about listening to what maybe you have done and how you've been able to navigate through some changes of seasons that have been in your life. Because at the end of the day, we want you to be your best.
Yeah. I would be so curious, especially, for our listeners who have the opportunity to leave us a comment. What are some of the things that you do, right, as the season changes that even if that's, related to cooking or your health and wellness routine, how do you, when you think about even your professional environment, what are those shifts that you make to accommodate for the seasons? So as you're moving through, right, the whatever season you are approaching, you always have the opportunity to stop and make a new plan. And I think that's always a benefit. There's no need to wait when you have a new opportunity, a new day in front of you ahead.
Yeah. And that's true no matter what age you are. You talked about you were going through the lifespan. You were saying in your 20s something was different than in your 30s and your 40s. They used to refer to relationships as the 7-year itch. Every 7
Mhm.
years you maybe were itching for a new partner. Well, I think you're biologically your body is changing as well. So it's not just influenced by your career, your profession, the people that you work with, your family members, not just the seasonal changes there, but the internal clocks and changes, shifts in metabolism. For instance, maybe you haven't been your diet doesn't consist of some healthy things, maybe to incorporate some better things. So things are changing there as well. So, keep in mind that the more in tune you are with your body, your surroundings, your profession, how you're responding to situations. Are you responding in a knee jerk situation with negativity? Or are you interpreting a situation and perhaps it doesn't need your response, and or it may then need you to say something light or just to, oh, that's interesting, or come
Mhm.
up with some sort of neutral comment that can turn a situation from getting frustrating to one where now you're in control, you've salvaged situation, and now you have a better season at work.
Yeah,
for
I
them.
agree. No need to be too icy cold or too fiery hot, right? There's always some opportunity to be in the middle ground.
We can make some serious adjustments here. Well, I thank all of you for joining us on Optimize Her Too with Barbara and Quincy. We hope that you will continue to join us on the first and third Tuesdays at 7 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. We enjoy that you're choosing this podcast over other podcasts. We know you have lots of selections out there. And you can also comment. And don't hesitate to view not just the short clips, but also the entire previous podcast that you may have missed. Again, this is all wonderful, good stuff for us, and we're learning so much from you and your comments and your views, and the fact that we are having viewers that are of both sexes. We're having 60% female and 40% males. We so appreciate each and every one of you, and thank you for visiting us on Optimize Her Too.